Good morning, this is Brian Whitten and ET Art. I thought I'd start this video, which will probably be, like I said, this will be the wrap up on the purpose of the monuments, the movement out of the planet and whatnot. It all started here. Effectively, this rock, albeit the message it has, is one of an archaic appearance. It is a message left by an advanced race far, far superior than us in every manner and possible imagination that we could possibly imagine. They are way, way beyond us, and to underestimate their ability would certainly be a grave mistake. And in saying that, I would emphasise the word grave. So I bring this image up because it is where it all started. From this rock, I've actually got to a point of understanding of the megaliths, the purpose they're here, and that we have come to a conclusion that the mythical Atlantis is not a myth. It's, in actual fact, a reality of a straight axis. And the so-called Goldilocks zone that our planet is said to exist in is not a Goldilocks zone at all. The true nature of travel of the planet causes us major issues. We will come to final conclusion on that very shortly. I just wanted to show you where we started, and I know this stick probably annoys the hell out of some people, but I thought it would be, in closing, very quick to express how it started. So this rock here was found by my son twice. The first time he found it and showed it to me, I said, "That looks very important, son. Would you keep that? We'll find out." And we got back to the car to find he'd hurled it back in the river. We didn't come to an argument or anything. I just looked at him with a smile on my face, and he had a smile on his face, and I thought, well, he must have had a reason to throw it back in the river. Excuse me. But anyway, 3 months later we went back down to the same river, and there's rocks everywhere all over the show. It's as far as your eye can see, rocks in every direction, all big, small, little, it's a very popular swimming place. And I take him back there 3 months later, which had been after a flood, so we'd had 12 foot of water over the water hole, and he found the same rock at his feet, and once again lifted it up and said, "Oh Dad, look, I found the rock again." That's what happened. And long story short, I had come at a time of understanding the message on this rock. I got to an understanding where this line was a line of longitude, and these 3 marks on it represented the equator and the tropics. There is a short line here, which I then realised as, a line of latitude. I then realised that this insert on this end here and this line across here, because I had watched so many megalithic videos about why they were all here, I realised that this line here then intersecting and crossing here, and I'd already was aware of this inserted image. Now I will show you is I was making a global warming video. So that's how we ended up kicking off from this point. And I realised there's a little indentation right there, which is an actual fact, where it's marked the tilt on the globe. So I thought, that's why I went to the pyramid. It wasn't just something out of a whim, it was something driven from knowledge of all the efforts of others that have gone around the globe. That is how it started. I just wanted to let you know that this is where I got this information from, was for Praveen Mohan. A image you see behind him is on a wall at the Tirumalaya Jan complex in central India. I could be pronouncing that slightly incorrectly there, so I'm doing my best. I wanted to discuss further, if you haven't watched the other videos to this point, there is a 5-video sequence that led us to this. I want to further and explain what we're seeing with this, so it's why I wanted to just put that in. So Praveen has put the effort into putting this up, and I believe that these images were sent to him and he then has been to the place to have a look at it, and therefore, like I said, I appreciate his work. It's the knowledge of people and efforts like he that make me go and do what I did. You know, when I saw what I saw, it's you know, something that needs to be investigated. I did not realise it would lead so far down a track of discovery, that's for sure. When we look at a closer image here to where it says the unnatural cycle, where the plane of the Earth is being moved, like I said, you need to go and watch some other videos. If you have not, you will not understand what we're talking about. It is far, far, far too much knowledge to put in one video. I would be here for hours. I cannot put the case forward without an explanation as to why you're saying what you're saying. Otherwise it would be stupid, which is why the videos tend to be a bit long. Pretty hard to tell people the planet's spinning around the sun in the wrong way. You sound like a complete fool if you do not read the message that's been left here to tell us exactly that. It is a message. I am merely portraying to you the message that is being left here. Why I can read the message, I have absolutely no idea. It's just the way it is. So anyway, moving on. This is our cycle that's completed. It's an unnatural cycle. It's put on the planet with a tilted axis to give us summer, winter, spring and autumn. We wouldn't have them. If the Earth was in its natural plane, it would be pulled to a straight axis very, very quickly. And we have also discussed the very, very slim line of horizontal magnetism of the sun that results in the flowing of tides, which drives waves like this. I will insert an image all over the east coast of Australia and most of the world, I expect, but certainly the biggest ocean being the Pacific is a major, major problem. It is one that is managed by this thing that we call the myth of Atlantis, which is in actual fact some harmonic device of some description or another that is able to clamp more water around the equator with the installation of such a device than the ocean is able to lift off the surface. That is what Atlantis is about. It is a device that needs to be installed, and it has been installed at least on 4 separate occasions. This is what the message is, which is what is written into this device. Okay, that is exactly what is here. These unnatural cycles that we're on, we are currently not finished this one. We've discussed this. These lines are not drawn in here. This is still in a switch mode because it hasn't finished. This is the cycle that we are about to finish, which requires the installation of Atlantis because we're about to hit the plane of the sun and our oceans will be driven by the very thin band, our tides will be driven by the very thin band of the sun. This is a lesson, and it is not only a lesson but is a indication as to how long the whole cycle runs in respect to the parchment that we've looked at. When you look at this, if I widen it out just a tad, you'll see that it's not just been this one cycle, it's actually twice. This is the other cycle here. There is a very faint moon here and a faint cycle there and another faint cycle here. This has already happened, this one. So here's another 48,000 years. I'll bring up the parchment in a minute and we will discuss where we get the totals from. So this is our 48,000 year cycle the first time, and this is our second cycle. And then I've been thinking and asking myself, why is the cycle so long? It has been an explanation, like I said, in planetary motion. That is where we're getting the 66,000 years. That is the first cycle. This is the second one, and we're halfway through the second cycle. Here, when we see the top of the line, this is the top of the creation of Nibiru, or the other star, when it gets ejected. We've gone through this in the last video, and the destruction of a planet causes the inner planet to move out, Venus to move in, that was Mercury moving out, It's moved out because we've lost one in here. This is what this is saying. Take note of the movement of these lines here. So Venus has moved in and Earth has moved in. It does not put Mars here. This is expelled beyond here and out here to the other band. When we come down here is where it represents the plane of the sun and how many thousands of years it stays on the plane of the sun with this device in place to steady the oceans, which is in actual fact Atlantis. The plane of the sun represented by, excuse me, standing here like this, like this. Like I said, as much as it looks like a UFO, it's actually two planes. That plane, which is the plane of the sun, and the other plane when we get knocked up and over the top, illustrated on the other plane, like this plane here. As I've said, it would appear to me to be that this event has created a situation where the planet was off plane and it's been put back on the plane down here. I know this is a bit glary and it's not ideal, but it's good enough for what I wanted to show you and discuss. We've spoken about the ocean, okay, and how the ocean is affected by this narrow band of magnetic plane of the sun. What we see here is, we discussed this, we've got an ocean that's steady. This is when the event came. So this is two comets that tilted our axis last time, 6,000 years ago. It's destroyed the civilization shown here with lights and cities, but a volcano is present. I wanted to discuss that because that's present all the time. And that is the reason for that, is they're saying it's more than just the effects on the ocean. The magnetic effect the sun has on the Earth's crust would also be an indication of creating a hell of a lot more volcanic activity. I'll bring us back to the parchment. If you ever really had a close look at this, it's an amazing parchment. Really amazing. The amazing thing is if you have a look at this man here, he's actually teaching these people here. Okay? If you look at them from about this line back, they've all got their back to him. From this line forward, they are all looking this way and listening. The irony in the manuscript. It's amazing. The thought process I was having as to why we have a sequence of 6,000 years off cycle, or off the cycle, or natural cycle, or natural plane. This is indicating the natural plane of the sun, and our travel on it. So we have come up again here. We have sat here for 12,000 years with Atlantis installed, steadying our oceans. We then get knocked down again and we do this loop for 6,000 years. We are on the traverse to meet the plane of the sun, which is where we are now, that we're heading towards here, to take up 24,000 years more with Atlantis installed, steadying our oceans. And as I pointed out, it is not something we can do. Even if we had the harmonic device and the ability and skills to do that, which we may not, we certainly would not have the other issue, which is the magnetic pull on the land masses would appear to be an issue as well, and that is why on the rocks we're seeing volcanoes everywhere. They are all there even prior to the arrival of the comets, okay, so, or asteroids, or meteors, or whatever, but that's what we are seeing on the rocks. So my question is then, well, why was I seeing such a long, why is this sequence here? We've had to go 1.5 times through a sequence, something that happened 66,000 years ago. Why is this so long? And then I realised that in essence what we're getting told is the band from the sun's magnetic pull is so narrow on one plane and very wide on the other. We can't be put on that one because we get cooked at the top, cooked at the bottom, frozen at the bottom, frozen at the top, depending on what 3 months of the year you're going to be in. and the band space on the planet, even with a tilted axis, which is why it's there, It's not only just the planet not getting moved by Nibiru or nothing affecting it. It's staying at 24 degrees for 6,000 years. Why? There is no band, that's why. But even the vertical band, when the oceans are managed, this is our ice age. And as much as you think that doesn't happen with a straight axis, it does. Because if you stop and think about where we live in Australia, if a straight axis brings us cooler temperatures, how can it get hotter going further south? It can't. So gradually, even though you've got sun on the poles, it is not, it's the air temperature. The air temperature, and that is why we have 24,000 there and 12 there, and that's why. Because we have to see the boys and girls and men and women that we have working in the universities and studies that learn as the ice age. Where do we get our ice age? We can't have an ice age here. Our situation was in the hurling of Nibiru out of the system, that these people have come to help us. And I would suggest that this cycle here is telling us that there is no cycle anymore that is appropriate for the planet. We are not in a Goldilocks zone anymore. And the planet, it wasn't just movement of the planet closer into the sun. That's why this exists. We are looking at the temple in Africa that is dug into the ground out of the bedrock. I've looked at this before and we've discussed it in a video, and I was not observant enough. I knew it was to do with pole shifts, but I certainly was not observant enough as to the message written right there. Because what we're seeing is the very sequence that we just went through in the parchment, in that we're seeing off plane with the sun being that plane, on plane with the sun being that plane. We're seeing 6,000 years down, 12,000 years up. 12,000 years in plane. 6,000 years up or down, depending on which way you're looking at it. 24,000 year cycle. 6,000 down. So it's got exactly the cycle drawn into the design. It not only is telling us that, it is also telling us that the event created one band of magnetic plane, narrow, which is why it's narrow, like so. And that is what it's actually trying to tell us. So then the lesson is that our Earth, as much as we think it rotates in the Goldilocks zone around the sun, it does not. It is here and managed, it would appear, and has been for 66,000 years, if we are to perceive the cycles that we are being shown in these megaliths 1.5 way through. A 48,000 year cycle as shown us by the parchment. And also now would appear the very same cycle written into the top of a building that's been, well, you could say it was dug out of the ground with a hammer and chisel. I certainly do not believe that. I know what I see on the rocks is beyond belief, actually, the skills and manufacture of the technologies in multifaceted laser cutting and insertions of fibre optic cable and the lighting methods to make different colours flash out of those symbols. I've got those, like I said, I've taken photographs of a symbol like this one where the symbol's colour changes, not the symbol, it's the colour. How does that happen? It's amazing. Some of the lighting and the techniques they've got, the skills and knowledge is beyond belief. So now we come to the term. We have to have this thing across the equator, not just from a perspective of the ocean, but also because of the land masses being affected by the magnetic pull of the sun as well. And we've been told if we sit with a straight axis like this, we incur an ice age. We can't go on the other band because it's that narrow. If we, even with a tilted axis of 24 degrees, if you haven't got a tilted axis, there's nowhere to live. But even with a 24-degree tilted axis on the manufactured cycle, we can only support, a 3 billion population that got put back on the planet was reduced by half. We couldn't even support 1.5 billion people on a planet on the other cycle. This is what the whole thing is about. The lesson is about our planet. We have not a cycle we can exist on in a natural state. And that is why all the megaliths are here. The message is very, very big. We are managed by a people far smarter. I'll bring us back just for a short moment to the cross-section of the pyramids here, where they show us the sequence, the comets, asteroids, tilted the axis in the first instance and then propelled the planet down. They stopped it doing it. Whether it went up or down, like I said, it's really difficult to see whether it persisted in going down or whether it persisted in going up. To be quite frank, it's really quite difficult. I think in the design of doing that, they said it doesn't really matter. The question is that once you're off the plane of the sun, there is nothing in our solar system, nor even the traverse of Nibiru through and up and over Jupiter. Does it affect our axis? Nothing does. And once again, the width of the crossing of the band of the bottom of the sun, the traverse of the planet underneath the vertical plane of the sun does not change our axis either. So, but this one here, like I said, in telling us everything they've told us, they are still in this one telling us, I've said before, how to get off the planet quickly. If you can propel a planet down, the entire mass of the planet at 9,000 kilometres an hour, with a comet that's only 200 kilometres wide, that does not fit the theory of relativity in respect Earth and living on the planet. It reflects a method and mode of getting off the planet via the use of electromagnetic pulse at exactly the right time. And you will just go, you're gone, 9,000 kilometres an hour, you're up and out. That's exactly what process is there. That's why that lesson's there. It's telling us how to get off the planet quickly. Well, I'm not a physicist, but I'm absolutely certain that further studies by learned men and women should be done in that respect there. I just wanted to bring this to your attention. I saw this last night. I can't thank the people that produced it because you can see as much as I can see there. What I'll do though is I will turn the volume down and we will let it play, and it discusses structures that have been found, as there are many all over the globe, but this one really took to, I'll just expand that a little bit bigger, and it sort of really was quite interesting in its shape, and it's out in the middle of the bay, as you just saw, off the coast, or in that area off the coast of America, and it implies that there's a structure certainly already in place. As I said, there looks to be, to me, and then we are told that Atlantis is not a mythical thing. It's a requirement of our planet coming into plane with the sun. And I would strongly suspect that is the reason why we have so many of these structures all over the globe. But I'll move on and we'll go back and look at the parchment again and understand where the lesson is taking us, okay? Truly understand where it's taking us. I'll just come back to the parchment now. There may be some of you who think my 66,000 years is incorrect. we have to start the process with a straight access with the device in place after the rescue mission, which is what the temple in India says. You have to have it at the start. So therefore the subtraction is not the 24,000 years from the 1.5 cycle, which is 48,000. 248 to 96. We subtract not 24, but there's another 6 you have to subtract. So it's 66,000 years, which is where you get the calculation there of how long ago the event occurred. You could come to a conclusion as a human that this cycle, once we get to the end of here, is going to incur another 6,000 year cycle, and we go back on the plane we started 66,000 years ago. I would suggest that that would be a pretty silly thing to assume, and that would be I'll show you why I think that's a silly thing to assume. I think we're being left enough here, and the instruction of the lesson extends such a long time, and still for us to know here, 24,000 years away from an ice age, a pending ice age, which they obviously let happen 20,000 years, or your ice age is ending not here. Whether the 12,000 there, that's not enough time. Another 6,000 of this, so we've got the 24,000 before that had to happen. That's why it had to be 24, because you can't get an ice age or can't force an ice age through a period of 12,000 years. So that's why the sequence is the way it is. If the situation is that the case, then to assume that we're going to go way back here, or for another lesson for 48,000, I'll show you where I think it doesn't exist. I know this sounds silly to go back to a rock, but really, seriously, it's actually a rock that got us this far. So I'm going to go back here. I can see what I can see here. This thing is dropping these things down here and making this cross. And that's what's making me think it's got to sit on the ocean. So that's why I'm saying we're at that point in the parchment. I know it sounds ridiculous to go back to an image like this when we see all the other structures around us. But honestly, what I have been told, certainly from the location of marks either disappearing, how they do that, it is beyond me. I suppose it is possible. I've seen these things. I move the rock around obviously at times. The images change as I'm doing them. It is conceivable, I suppose, they could be interfered with. It is all microprocessor controlled technologies we're talking of. But that's what we're seeing. So I will move on from this point and say, no, this has got to be on the ocean, and we'll go back to the parchment, and that is why we are at that coming up to the plane. So when we come back to the parchment and we realise that this cycle, certainly in my opinion, I would think we are here without doubt. We have no pipe installed. It has to be on the ocean. And our remaining 24,000 years is going to cause an ice age. Okay. So I'm not seeing another cycle beyond this. I don't believe for 1 minute that is the end. There is no lesson beyond here. That's why the lesson ends here. That's why this man's standing here. Our lesson ends here, 24,000 years from now. Having said that, it is not something that we could all go, well, it's 24,000 years away, why worry about it? It's mankind, that's why we worry about it. It's us. They worry about us probably more than we do at times, I'm certain of that. Certainly our leaders seem to depict a total lack of concern for the populace, and would rather reduce our population than increase it, which is a very big pity. I have a feeling they will probably be dealt with here. Having said that, like I said, there's an appearance here like none of this would exist, none. The accuracy, the pyramid, anything. Nothing is going to be here. if when they come here they're not going to help mankind. The whole lot is here. Not to just let us know what the choices are, and we've got none. There's no choices. There's not a good plane of a planet to sit on around the sun without their assistance. And we know that without doubt. It is, the message is exactly that. We look, what I want to bring your attention to is this line here. It's a 3,500 mark past their arrival here. I'm not 100% sure what that means, but what I will say is that from that point, everybody this way is listening to this person, and everybody that way is not in the picture, so to speak. These people here, there is a man teaching here, and it's saying, well, this person here has taught these people, and they all know. That's what I'm saying. To me, that is imposing that it's a knowledgeable thing. That what I've got to at this point in understanding is a known thing. And that is also reflective of exactly that. That there is a given amount of the population that when we get to this point know full well about the situation. And it would be, like I said, the pinnacle of human stupidity not to spread the truth amongst your populace. There we have the element of control once again rearing its head. But that is why I say this is the cycle here is once each 90,000 years, and we reach the end of our lesson right there. And their assistance here, when you put 3 million people back, who do you put back? That is a very good question. I actually am seeing here, when I see 3 million people put back, are they the best people that were here? It's a good question, isn't it? The 3 billion people that go back on the planet here, and we're going to say, well, the rest of them are all dead. They left 10 billion people on the planet to take this. I don't know that that's actually the case. I actually think this is a 12,000 year event here, this all the way to here, and they're showing civilization, albeit there was behaviour that was not acceptable, obviously, or wouldn't have happened. Or would it have? That's what I mean. You have to have the cycle. If the ultimate aim is to teach the people on the planet the problem with the cycles, you have to complete a first cycle. You have to do this. So I'm not saying they've only put 3 billion people back here. Why? If they're going to put them, I know they're not going to cop the brunt of the situation, but they're going to, their ancestors are certainly in 3,500 years or 3,000 years met with a planet that is almost unlivable to a degree. 3,000 years ago it would have been sheer hell living on our Earth at that point. So, the situation is, it's a one cycle, that's it. They're coming here to help, and they're going to clean up the act. I would expect, like I said here, they take people away. They give people an option, I believe. That's pure conjecture at this point. I would believe the rest of the story is 100% correct. But at this point, I'm seeing a choice given to some. As I'm seeing here, there may be a choice given to some here. And say, well, look, this is what's going down. You can come with us and go and live another life, another way, in another planet. They may take people off here and take them somewhere else, but they've got to get to a realm of understanding understanding the concepts of the galaxies, how it works, so many other peoples, and an understanding that is obviously not displayed by human nature at this point. So they've actually got to build human nature and change it through this process as well, because how else do you let a race of people at any point get off the planet here? You can't let humans go and take off into space with the behaviour we have. you know. There are people on our planet that eat babies. My God. I live in a world like that where it's protected. That behaviour, raping and murdering children is protected. They're going to sort this out here, you know. That's what's going to happen. The mere fact that the cycle is 66,000 years, I'm going to suggest one thing. I just wanted to bring up an image then of our solar system, the way we're taught it is anyway, where in retrospect we don't just have this situation, we have another one of our other stars that used to be a star, now rotating around Jupiter in this orbit, around this way. Understand that what we're seeing here is the plane on the other star is going to be same as this one. It's going to be like that. The narrow beam of the sun that left is like this. The narrow beam of our sun is that way. When the traverse of the other star went out through the solar system, it took one planet out. These jiggled around and moved themselves. They do not say what happened with Mars in the temple in India. It only displays Mercury, Venus and Earth, and the movement in and out does not say about Mars. And this part, I will say, from the point of view of the lesson that's been left here for us, this part is my part, is conjecture. I would expect the rest, like I said, to be 100% correct, as most people, I say most people, there are many people on our planet know what I'm telling you is 100% right. What we're seeing, in my opinion, we always see three, it doesn't matter what it is, and yet they've left Mars off, and it would have been exactly the same. Mars is not the one that's going to keep us steady. We are told our axis doesn't move when we are not in rotation or in plane with the sun. So we're not on this plane here at the moment. We're actually just a little bit under, about half a degree would be the rock if it says 17. 17 years is half a degree of the 180 degree half rotation of the unnatural cycle. It's a situation here whereby it hasn't told us about Mars, and I was thinking about why not, and I would suggest that possibly Earth's population at this event, when the star was hurled out, that there may have been other worlds populated. And I would suspect maybe Mars and Venus possibly could have been situations where we had existence of life, and that Earth itself, in the ability of the people come here, and why the cycle is 90,000 years and that's it, you're getting one go and that's the show, is why, why they've made this that whole sequence so long. So number one, we had to understand physically from the Earth, it'll be recorded that the Earth has done these things, and we needed that as well. So, and we needed the expertise of the learned men and women in fields of those, those sciences to come to terms with this, and then go and do your studies, and you'll see that this is reality. But the situation is, like I said, I would expect to see that our planet here may very well have had a situation whereby the advanced race was not on this planet. That's what I think. I actually think the advanced race came from Mars, and I would suspect, and I don't mean to sound racist at all, I'm just merely saying the way the planet and the populace is spread along the planet for the period of time that we have been in, if that event is going to take place, and with the dark-skinned people in the southern hemisphere and the lighter-skinned people in the northern hemisphere, that does not fit evolutionary. If evolutionary standards are what we perceive to get taught, I actually believe the people from Mars, which was us white people, had a thing in our culture that was unacceptable, and part of the deal in them coming and rescuing the people from Mars was that there was one practice in the event that they carted their civilization to Earth, that they, number one, let the people that live there live the way they wished, which they haven't. And number two, that they stop the process on their planet, which was this consumption of their own. They may have advanced to a point where they could produce and manufacture this drug that seems to be gotten by absolutely terrorising baby children while they drain their blood. And that is the drug that these people seem to seek. They will be dealt with, I'm absolutely certain. But this is what's happened, I believe. I believe that what's happened is us white people have been put on this planet, and we have terrorised the people that were here, which were the dark-skinned people. I don't mean to sound, like I said, racist. It's just, when I look at the message, I look at the way that the land masses were separated in the last incident. I look at where the coloured people lived. You know, they were living good until we got here. I mean, they were living the way they wanted to live, put it that way. And they have our white supremacy thrust on them in every sense of societal sense. And it's not wrong of us, because we think, well, we're trying to do the right thing. And in the event, here we are, because if we weren't this way, we're all going to die, you know. Our star, our sun, is one only now, and in the days where it was two, we could all exist the way we were in a natural environment. The thrusting of the other star has caused an issue. There are people that would understand, well, why don't we get an ice age here when it's, well, we've got two suns, so maybe, I don't know. You know, it obviously did not happen in a natural state with the cycle of the planet. Bring us back to the parchment one more and final time. And just suggest, as I said, without doubt they're coming to help. And the pipe will be put around the ocean. What is concerned here, if we're looking at beyond the time where we come back up to the plane of the sun here, and we've counted these as being 7 to 8 billion people, which is what the world population is at the moment. We've only got 3 people or 4 people here, only half the population listening. Right? If in actual fact this parchment is telling us these things. And these people know, they know what's going down long before it happens. That is for certain. If the situation be that this be the case, I'm seeing a reflection here. Like I said, their lessons are not just ones of a sense of planetary motion. They are ones of a moralistic attitude. And I'm seeing here a depiction of a possibility of, like I said, they give us plenty of time. Over and over and over again, like the repeated message, is their assistance and their understanding, to a degree, of human nature in more ways than I probably think we sit and ponder our own existence. Our existence is going to end there. We are at a point now where we've learnt a lot, but I'm saying this little message here is a little one, I believe, that may very well be one of a moralistic lesson here, and they're saying, listen, there's an amount of people in all sorts of levels here that you can turn back this way still, before this event here. You can turn backwards here. You know, there's less of this one here. Right? There's more of this guy. There's nearly all of that guy. And if this is levels of, you know, the people down here, the ones cutting the little babies, you're gone, man, or most of you. Some of you may not be. It's what it's saying here. You might be able to just, it's not forgiven, but we understand that people are bred into this type of lifestyle, not like I have been bred into, although, like I said, doesn't necessarily mean being bred into it, stepping into the lifestyle. is one of choice. I'm seeing choice here. And time. I'm going to finish off the video with that. Choice and time. Seeing, leaving that message as well. Thanks very much. This is Brian Whitten and ETR. Have a nice day.